We're going to find out how to prepare contract documents today and also how to access a title search, which we require when we are doing a contract to sell a property. So the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to access our title search. Now to do that, we can do that via CoreLogic or RP Data, and we just need to open a new tab, which we've done there. I have a shortcut on the bookmarks here to CoreLogic. So we log in there and then we choose, where is the login button gone? It's there. And we want to log into RP Data. So these are my login details, obviously. You'll have your own. Sign in. Now the easy way to do it is we just search for the property and there's a function embedded in there to get us a title reference. I prefer to switch back to RP Professional, so that's why I'm choosing that. Now, I'm going to show you one we recently accessed a title search for 12 Miranda Street, and I would use that as my demonstration, even though I already have saved that in my file. So there's the address. You would type your address for the relevant property. As we searched the other day, it's showing there, 12 Miranda Street, search. Now, here's our property, 12 Miranda Street. We scroll down a little, we can see all the usual information it provides us, their real property description, and under there, there's a little hyperlink that says Get Title Reference. So we can click on that. It will open us up a new screen where we literally order a title search, and we have to pay for it, and we have a preloaded card in there. It's $24 for a title search. Now, I'm not literally going to order it because I've already done that. And normally I would just type in the client reference box, I type the property address, I would type in there 12 Miranda. And then you click the review order button and it thinks for a minute and then it will open the screen again and give you the option to download it as a PDF. You can go in and find recently searched properties by accessing the documents button here on the main page. I should be able to find any that I've done recently. My documents, that's where we go. It's going to show me here title searches I've done recently. So I access that by clicking my documents. Now you can see a couple of days ago, I ordered the title search for Miranda Street. So the screen that you get after you pay for it does look quite similar to this. So I'm just going to download it again, just to show you. Puts it straight into your downloads folder. And then you can open it and save it in the property file. There it is there. It defaults to calling it titles number, title orders number. Now you can leave it at that name or you can change it. If we go back to our listing folder in Shared Drive Sales, here's Miranda Street here. I will have saved it in the contracts folder because it relates to a contract. Actually changed the name of it to Title Search 12 Miranda. This is what it looks like. Not a very impressive looking document. It's just an A4 page. Gives us the legal ownership name, real property description. This one is interesting because the property has a caveat across it by its partner of the owner. We don't see these all the time, so this is a good one to have a look at. Now, normally, if anything comes up under easements, encumbrances and interests, it must be typed onto the contract document. We ignore number 1, rights and interests reserved to the Crown. Every single title search has that. Basically just means if the government wants to repossess your land, they are free to do so. So that's not unusual. If there was a mortgage over the property, that would also appear here. But this one has a caveat. Reginald Raymond Milham, who presumably is the ex-partner of Robin Zernike, who is the owner. And you can see here it also is showing in administrative advices there is a dealing lodged with the Land Titles Act. Abbreviated, I presume that means notice of action. It was lodged last year, several months ago, and I would assume that would all relate to his claim over having some kind of compensation when this property is sold. To find out exactly what it meant, I think you would have to ring up the Land Titles Office, quote that dealing number, and then they may or may not tell you under privacy laws. But anyway, I'm going to leave that open on my screen because when I type the contract, I try to copy and paste, especially the numbers, reduces the chance of making an error. So we've accessed our title search and then we can start typing the contract. So we use the RealWorks program. So I'm going to open another tab. It's RealWorks in my bookmarks bar. And it goes straight in and signs in under my email address and the password's auto-filled. So here's the menu from RealWorks. This is a program supplied by the REIQ. We pay a subscription to be able to access these forms, which are sales and property management forms for Queensland only. So we have a menu on the side here. It defaults to opening in the news page. Doesn't hurt to check that because it will advise us if there's changes to contract forms and things like that or legislation. We were mainly interested in these two items, templates and forms. So we have already created standardised templates for all the documents we commonly use, pre-filled with our address, licence numbers, things like that. So to do a form from scratch, we access the templates. Now, there are a lot of templates in here because they do relate to property management as well. If contracts wasn't the first one that you can see and you were looking for it, you can easily type in the search bar contract and it will find anything with the word contract saved in the heading. You can see here there are separate forms for a house and land and a community titles, duplexes, units, etc. And also we have separate ones here if the property is waterfront, which you must use. They have a special clause added in which relates to the purchaser becoming responsible for the maintenance of the revetment wall, which is like a retaining wall which fronts along the waterfront, canal, off ocean, lake, whatever it is. So if you have a waterfront property, you should choose a template. Our house is just a normal house and land. Now we can open it by double clicking here, or we can also use these little menu here. I'm going to double click on it and show you here. It says it warns you that you are looking at the template because you can easily overtype these, which is annoying, but it's saying here you can continue to view it. So if maybe you might want to amend it for some reason, maybe I'm actually going to add Lorraine's mobile phone number in here just for the point of the exercise. And that will be saved on the template. And so I've made that little change. I'm going to save it. This extra menu on the right-hand side here, you can close that down while you're not using it. That comes towards the end of the process. Just gives you more screen to view. Okay, so we've made our little change to that. And you can see here it says create a form. So we're going to click on that. Now, you give it a name. I'm going to just do a test for the purposes of the exercise. I've already done a contract in draft for 12 Miranda Street, the one we looked up the title search for. So I will refer back to that, but we're just going to call this test today. Normally you would put the street number and contract. Okay, now it's chosen to take out the majority of our company name and just leave it with the trading name, which is annoying. If that happens, I can show you how to fix that. I'm just going to open another tab, back into RealWorks again. Go to our template. I think that was because I just chose to autofill the details. You can just copy that and paste it in there. We should use the full name. That is the license for the real estate is under this company name, Lifestyle Properties Gold Coast, which is the trustee for this, and then we trade as Lifestyle First Realty. So you should have the full name in there. Okay, just save that while we want to. You can save as many times as you like while you're doing the process. So shouldn't need to change anything at the top. Obviously here you can zoom in and out to make it easier to read what's there. Now, for some reason, it's decided to take out that mobile number and replace it with the office number. Not sure why. Okay, so what we fill in on the front page, we just follow our way through the form. All these forms, anything that's pale blue, you can type in. Seller. We refer back to our title search. However, the owner stated on the title search is what you put on the contract. So even if the person who's selling the property had told you something different, we use what is on the title search. That is the legal document. So you can copy that just going to put it there because I like to type in upper and lowercase, not all in capitals. Now, this is a good example because Robin is an elderly lady and she's currently in a nursing home. She has appointed her 2 daughters to act as her power of attorney. And so we need to also type their details in because they are the ones who will be signing the form, not Robin herself. Now, when we sell a property for someone who has appointed a power of attorney, they need to provide us with the power of attorney document, which they have done so, and it is saved in our folder. So we can go back to our Miranda Street file, and you can see here in the contracts folder, I've scanned a copy of the power of attorney document, which was provided by Robin's daughters. So they had a photocopy and I've scanned it. So it's not a copy of the original. It says here it's JP is certified that it's true and correct. The first lot of pages are a dictionary and explanation of what a power of attorney means. So the information we need will come through further along. Here we are here. So it shows that Robin has appointed her 2 daughters, Sonia and Stephanie. It lists their full addresses, which may or may not be current considering how long ago it was that she actually drew up this document. Now, when Robin had options when she drew this up as to what she wanted to appoint them to be able to do. They are able to make financial decisions on her behalf. Now, what we're looking for is, how do you prefer that they make decisions? She could have chosen that either of them can sign the document, one or the other, or both. Now, she has chosen that she wants them to make these decisions jointly, which means both the daughters have the powers of attorney must sign any legal forms, not just one. That is what we really need to know. And as we scroll through, you can see her signature obviously deteriorated. And it was drawn up by a solicitor, witnessed, etc. So that's the power of attorney document. And when we do sell the property and we're sending the contracts off to a solicitor, we will attach that as well, especially for the buyer's solicitor's benefit, so they can see what we're telling them is correct. So we need to know the 2 daughters, the 2 power of attorney people's full names, because we're going to add those in the seller's field. So we've got Sonia May McIntosh and Stephanie Ellen Grant. So I'm going to type them in here. Sonia May McIntosh, and Stephanie Ellen Grant as power of attorney. I think it's fine to put both their names on one line. I don't think it would be incorrect to put Sonia as power of attorney there and then repeat and have Stephanie there. I don't think that would be incorrect, but I don't think there's any problem with putting them both there. Now, the address, Stephanie actually lives at 12 Miranda Street, so we are going to use that as the contact address. Documents will get sent there. If the property was vacant, we could use one of their residential addresses as the contact address, whatever their instructions are. I normally don't fill in the seller's details, phone, etc., and email. As I was told once upon a time, a long time ago, that was the preference because you don't want buyers contacting sellers direct. So I'll leave those blank. We do know who the solicitor is because we've already been corresponding with them because of the situation for this particular property. You may not know the seller's solicitor, or they may not have even appointed anybody at the point of time where you're creating the contract document. Can always be filled in later on. So we know that they are using Hoy McCormack. I think the rest of the name. I'm just going to have a quick look. My emails, I know I have plenty of correspondence from them, with them a few times lately. Hoy McCormack. So I'm just going to get their contact here. Hoy McCormack and Maloney. So we're going to type those details in. They're actually dealing with one of the partners, Samantha Maloney. So I'm going to put her in as contact. They've already disclosed all this information to us, which is how I know. Here's their phone number. Now, you may have to Google these people to get their contact details. Some people know the name of the person at the firm, or the firm but not the person. It depends. They may give you all this information or they may not. Going to enter the fax number, even though we don't have a fax number, some solicitors still use that. Their generic office address is office@oimac.com. If they've provided you with the contact person's personal email, personalised email, you can type that in. Hoy and McCormack seem to prefer that you use their office one. Now, their address, I'm going to get off their attached letter here. We always use the PO box as opposed to a street address. They've got one, it's PO Box 104 Currumbin. So I'm going to type that in as their address. Now, we're doing this contract so that the salesperson, Lorraine, has it on hand for her open homes. So obviously at this point, we do not know a buyer's name. There is no buyer. If we were typing it because we have an offer has been accepted verbally and we're proceeding to contract, you would then complete all the buyer's details. Now, I do fill in the buyer's mobile and email if they provide it. Occasionally, you will get a buyer's agent acting on their behalf. Doesn't happen very often, but if you do have one, that would be another real estate agent, most likely. You would fill that in. If the buyer doesn't know their solicitor at the time they're signing the contract, that's fine. They can provide that later. If you have the information, you type it in. Now here, the property address. We do know this. We know the address. We know that it's a house, so that will be built on, which the form defaults to that. If it was a vacant block of land, you would have to switch across and change that to vacant. Now, the description, this is asking for the real property description, which we can get that off RP data. We can also get that off our title search. This is what that is here. We don't need the local government. Just going to copy the actual plan number, lot 6. So we type in there lot 6. That's all you need to type. Lot is pre-printed. You don't need to type it again. It was a registered plan. Could be a survey plan. It's not uncommon for houses as well. Now, the title reference. That is the top number here. So we copy that so we don't make a typo and fill it in that field there. Now the area, you can get that off RP data. I think it was 446. Obviously, I would check. This is just a test. Type that in there with meters squared. It automatically says more or less, so you don't have to worry about typing approximate. Very rare that we would sell leasehold property, hardly ever do that. So it's defaults to freehold. Present use is it's a residential area, local government's auto-filled. Occasionally you could sell something further north, which may be under Logan Council, just check that. But 99% of the time, Gold Coast City Council's fine to stay there. Now, if there was anything at the property which was not going to be sold to the purchase, say if they had a lovely water feature in their front yard and the owner wanted to take that, if it's going to be there at the open homes but not there at settlement, you need to type that in. Could be a water feature, could be a wall-mounted television, something like that in living in this room. Make sure if it's not there, well, then it can cause problems later. So anything that would fit that description, you can put in there. An included chattel. We normally mention dishwashers because they can be removed. We normally mention solar panels if they're there. You don't need to mention a oven or anything like that. They may have a refrigerator that's plumbed into their property. You could put that in as well. So check that with the salesperson. The most common things to put in: dishwasher, solar panels, air conditioner. Or if there's more than one, you could say air conditioner by 2. So they're the kind of things that you would include in there. Now, the deposit holder is 99.9% our agency. Very rare that it's someone else. The other options could possibly be the seller's solicitor's trust account, but it's not very common that we need to change deposit holder. This is where they would be paying their deposit, our trust account details. That's autofills. Okay, obviously we don't know a purchase price before anything's agreed, same with deposit. We'll leave those blank unless we're doing it. We get a couple of options of when a deposit is paid. If you were typing this after an offer's been accepted, they might have said they're going to pay $5,000 initial deposit when the contract's signed, and they may be going to pay another $15,000 in 14 days. You can add information like that in there. We don't worry about default interest rate. I think I have never typed anything in there. Finance. Majority of contracts require finance. If you took that out, that would mean if you took all of this information out, that would mean the buyer has told you they do not require finance at all, which is not very common. So we leave these standardised clauses in and a little bit of a gap there where you can handwrite or type in the numbers, usually 14 or 21 days for finance, 7 or 14 for building and pest. If they were determined not to have one, you could take it out. That does not occur very often. Now, this property, as we saw in the title search, does have an encumbrance, which is that caveat. So we have to tick yes. If there was nothing, it was just all clear, which the majority of them are, you would tick no. So I go back to my title search and I actually copy that and paste it in. Another way of avoiding making any errors. Caveat number. There's the time that it was lodged back in July last year. And the gentleman's name. Like I say, this is not a common thing to see. Oh, I put that in twice. Take that out. Okay, you can put a bit of space in there just so it stands out if you want. The more common one is an encumbrance because the property may have a shared driveway or it could have some kind of council, maybe a sewer drain in the back that may need to be accessed. That is a more common kind of encumbrance to see, in which case it would show on the title search and say something like, rights and interests to the Gold Coast City Council over portion of lot something or other, whatever it might say, you just copy and paste that in. That is a more common one to see. Now, the next thing here, tenants. If there are no tenants, it instructs us to type the word nil. The fact that one of the owners is living there does not make her a tenant. That is relating to anybody who is on a legally general tenancy agreement or lease. That will affect when the property settles and whether that person is going to get vacant possession. If there was a tenant there on a lease, you need to have that information and fill it out, name, these things here. Okay, and if there was a tenant in place, you would also type the real estate agent who was the property manager. If there is a pool, we just scroll through and we answer those questions as required. Is there a pool? Now, if there is a pool, but no pool safety certificate has been issued, then we need to work through that and declare things as well. You shouldn't really say yes to these questions if you don't know for a fact if there is a safety switch and smoke alarms. The smoke alarm legislation changed early in 2022. If we don't know whether they have upgraded to meet the new legislation, I would just leave those blank until the sales agent is able to ascertain what the case is. If you know for a fact that they've been done, you can tick installed and installed. Same goes for neighbourhood disputes. This does not mean they argue over the back fence with their neighbours. It means that there is an official dispute lodged with the Civil and Administrative Tribunal, QCAT, and also a very uncommon thing to see. So you choose whichever is relevant. These with GST withholding obligations, really you need to know this information first. Is the buyer registered for GST? So really that should be something that the buyer should tell you at the time of signing the contract. I generally don't either yes or no there. May be registered for GST, but not acquiring it for a creditable purpose. We don't know that information. Now, you're probably playing it fairly safe to tick the top choice and the next one. The seller gives notice to the buyer, the withholding law, that they are not required to make a payment. It gives you a little description here saying that the most likely situation that would come up would be if it was new residential premises or potential residential land. You could tick the top box there because it's probably fairly safe that they're not going to have to make a payment under that clause. But if you're unsure, leave it open and wait for them to sign. We have a couple of standard terms and conditions. The first one is that the parties are agreeing everything can be done electronically, meaning faxing, emailing, docu-signing. So that stays in. These are standard clauses that you really don't take out. Contract contains the whole of the agreement. You can read all of this and understand it if you'd like. PECs are compulsory. Everything pretty much now is done by electronic settlement. So we may or may not need to leave this in much longer because it may just become something due course. We'll sort that out with the solicitor. This last clause here relates to security interests on items that may be come up under the personal securities register. Now, if we go down to the terms and conditions, our dictionary in the back, it explains here what all of these little abbreviations mean. So you can see here the PPSR, Personal Property Security Register. My best example of that is somebody has installed a lot of solar panels on their roof and they may still be paying that off. That, of course, has got to be clarified before settlement goes through. That is the best example I can think of why this clause would need to be in here, because you would need to make sure that debt of the sellers does not transfer across to the buyers. That is the best explanation I've got for the meaning of this last clause. Now, settlement date. Obviously, here there is room if there was some other special condition which needed to be typed in. They needed Body Corp approval to get a dog, for instance. If this was a unit contract, they may need to wait for settlement on the buyer may need to settle on a property before they can purchase this. We'll go into special conditions later, but you can type them in there if you've got room. Otherwise, you can type C Annexure A and add a form page at the back, which I'll show you how to do in a moment. Settlement. Normally, it's a figure there of 30 days, 45 days, something like that. Occasionally, you would type an exact date in there, not that common to do that. So usually you leave that there with a little space to fill in 30 days, 45 days, whatever. Space for settlement very rarely changes either. And here we have provision for the signatures. You can't type people's names or anything here. It doesn't allow you to, so that's not necessary. And if you're doing this by DocuSign, they don't need to have a witness. If you're doing it in person, somebody should witness the signatures. The rest of the form is the dictionary of terms and conditions that explains a lot of things. It doesn't hurt to read a lot of this because it will give you an insight into how things work. If you want to see how things happen, you can read the terms at the back. It is fairly easy to understand. Now, you can see that goes all the way through there to page 15 of 15. Now, if I had needed to add an extra page to type in an extra clause, which may have been quite wordy and wasn't going to fit there, we can open our little menu here and you can see we've got an annexures option. Just going to move that out of the way. REIQ provides you with a few different annexure pages to cover the most commonly met things that can happen. Additional people, if there's a lot of people going to be party to the document. Some of these clauses seem to be more related to property management, but anyway. It does give you a few standard ones. If it was a deceased estate was relevant. If they're paying their deposit by a deposit bond, you don't get that very often. Simultaneous settlement. So you may find that the clause you require has already been provided by the REIQ. If your clause is not one of these and you just need a blank page to type in the clause that maybe a solicitor has given to you, you can tick that box and click Update. And if we scroll now to the very end of the document, you'll see an extra page has been added, an extra page. And you can type away to your heart's content and fill that page up. If you change your mind and you don't want it after all, to get rid of the extra page, you just click on that box again, untick it, update, and an extra page has disappeared. So once you're happy with your document, you can save it. Once you finalise it, you can no longer make changes. So if you're unsure whether you may need to edit it, just leave it as a draft for now. If you're happy with it, you can click Finalise, which you'll do just to show you what happens. It takes the wording of draft across the front away. There's our document there. Print it. To save it, you click Download. You can also choose to add these little things here, little red tags on the pages where people need to sign here tab. So you can, if you want to do that, you can tick a couple of boxes. And then when you choose print, it doesn't automatically print it. It's just giving you the option. It will download it into your downloads folder. Then you can move it into your property file. Now, there's usually a couple of other documents that you can do in conjunction with the contract. Most common is the electronic communications form. If you choose this, open this More menu here, one of the choices is a new related form. There's not everything, only a handful of things. But if I wanted to do an electronic communication form for my buyer, for them to consent to do that, If I click that, and if I had type buyer's details in the contract, it would autofill them for me. Just saves you a bit of typing. So there is that option there as well. So if we close that, we can see now if we go to our forms list, you can see it's the most recently done one, and you can see here is the final copy. There's a draft I did earlier. So if you've left it as a draft, you can open it again and go back in and make any amendments you may need. So that is how you do a contract document. And in theory, that is how you do any kind of document in RealWorks. The same process applies.